Hello everyone, welcome to another video tutorial in this Call of Duty style loadout system tutorial series. Today we're going to be building our loadout UI. It's going to be pretty straightforward and easy to build this out. I'm also going to be showing you an alternative method for the portrait images that we've taken in our previous tutorial series, which is in the link description below. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Let's jump into this one now. Let's start by going to our loadout system folder. Go to the UI, right-click, User Interface, Widget Blueprint, Use a Widget, and then name this W_loadouts. Open this up, and first thing that we're going to add is a size box. And then also set this fill screen to desired on screen. And the size box for now, I'm going to size it as our width and our height is going to be overridden. And we're going to override it by 500 and then also to height as 800. So that gives us a nice rectangle like this. So this is our base for our loadouts. Now let's start with a wrap box. This wrap box allows us to tightly pack all of our different components of our loadouts inside of this size box very nicely. And inside of this wrap box, I'm going to go ahead and add a size box. And this size box, I'm going to go ahead and do a width override and a height override. I'll make this of size 450. So it's not all the way from edge to edge. And then also the height, I'm going to make it 300. And I'm going to select this wrap box and make sure that my horizontal alignment is in the center. And also my horizontal alignment and vertical alignment on the slots are also in the center. So it shows up like this. This size box, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and right click and then add in a wrap with a overlay. This overlay, we're going to go ahead and press F2 and then name this as our primary. This is the overlay that is going to contain all of our primary weapon related information. I'm going to go ahead and first search for a border. Add it inside of the size box. Select this border and then set the vertical alignment to the top, align vertically. And the brush color, I'm going to go onto this V channel and then make it 0.05. This makes it a nice dark gray, which you will see in just a second. And then I'm also going to add in a text inside of this border. And this text block, for now, I'm going to go ahead and name this as class and then a line and a name. So it's going to show the class of the weapon and then also it's going to show the name of the weapon. And that's the 0.05 color that you see. And next thing that I'm going to add is an image. And I'm going to add it to my primary overlay. This image, I'm going to go ahead and then size this as 400 by 250. And then I'm going to put it on the horizontal alignment, I'm going to center it. And then on the vertical alignment, I'm going to put it on the bottom. So it looks like this. Now, if you're in our previous tutorial, we took the portraits of all of our weapons and stuff. So we're going to grab one of this weapon. So I'm going to grab this portrait AK-47 and I'm going to drag it and drop it into this image as such. And this would resize the image, the X and the Y. We just have to resize it back to 400 and 250. And that will add it into our box like that. The tutorial was made to show you how you can take images in Unreal. It's not the perfect image that we took, but it's just a concept that I wanted to show you that you can take images inside of Unreal, and this is how you get it. You can again go ahead and modify your image, make it smaller, bigger, zoom more into the actual asset as you would like as well. And either way will work. Now, if you don't like this black background, there is an alternate option that you can do. You can always create a material. I'll show you really quickly here. You can right click and create a material and name it anything you would like. And then the surface, you would make it into user interface. And then the blend mode, you'll make it translucent. And then you just need to take this RGB, add a desaturation node to it. And the output of it, you would add a power node. And you will make your exponential 0.001. And then also you would add in a new constant. 0.009 would be your constant value. And then now you need to subtract this constant from the power and then clamp it so it doesn't go above 0 or 1, because this is going to determine our opacity, and opacity goes from 0 to 1. So this clamp would make it so it doesn't go below 0 and it doesn't go above 1. And then we need to connect this RGB to our final color. Now, if I go apply in our loadouts, I can now take this material and then I can actually put it in here, and then that will remove the background. Reason why I'm not using the material is, if you remember in our data sets, we are actually, for our portrait, we're actually going to be using a texture 2D as our portrait. And if you want to change it, you could always go and add in a material into your structure. If you want to use the material that is removing the black background instead of the one with the black background, and then you would need to make this into a material instance object reference. And then you would go back into your portrait and then right click on this material, and then you would create a material instance. And this is what you would actually drag and drop into your portrait, the instance. And that's how you would actually, if you were to go with the one with the no background, this is how you would do it. You would use the material instance instead. And then here in your data table, you would select that material instance. And you would drag and drop this material instance into this. And this is what you would do if you want to use the material instance instead of a texture. Texture is the easiest way to get things done. If you want to go the material instance route, please feel free to follow this step. And everything else following, it would be the exact same thing. Instead of the texture, you would just use the material instance instead. So we're back here, and this is what I'm setting up to be my weapon. And on the top, it's going to say the weapon's name and also the weapon's class. And this we're going to do through our code. We're not going to do this at this time. And then after this, now we're going to set up our secondary and our melee. So we're going to go and search for a horizontal box and drag it and drop it onto this wrap box. And we're going to go ahead and name this as secondary. And inside of the secondary, I'm going to go ahead and right click on this primary overlay and then right click, duplicate it, and then drag this primary onto the secondary box. So it creates the exact same setup again in our secondary slot. Let's go ahead and click on this primary and then go ahead and rename this to our sidearm. This would be our sidearm. And again, our size box, we want it to be half of this weapons box. So I'm going to select this weapons box currently is set to 450. So I'm going to select the size box of the sidearm and then make it half of that, which is going to be 225. And I'm going to select the image, and then instead of the 400, I would now make it 200. So that's how it would look. I'm going to go ahead and replace this with one of our sidearm images, portraits that we made. Now this melee box is actually the same size as our main primary weapon box, which is not what we want. I'm going to go ahead and select the size box of the sidearm and then make this height override to 200. And I'm going to select the image, and then on the Y, which is the top and bottom, top to bottom, I'm going to make this into 150, 100 units less. Compile and save. Now that looks good. And what I'm going to do now is to right click on the sidearm, and I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it. What this will do is it will create another class because it's in the horizontal box. It's creating a class to the right of it. So I'm going to go ahead and rename the sidearm now to melee. Open this up, and our image, I'm going to go ahead and add in the knife image. Again, it's going to come out at 1024 by 1024. We're just going to make this into 200 by 150. The same size as the image of the pistol. And one last thing that we need to do is we need to add in a separation between all of these components. Now, a wrap box actually has a slot padding. So if I were to add a padding of 10 in the y-axis, you will notice that there is a gap in between the primary and the secondary slots. But if I add anything to the x value, it just moves the slot left and right, but it doesn't really put that padding in between the melee and the knife weapon. So we have to do that manually. To do that, we're going to go ahead and search for something called a spacer. Drag this in between the sidearm and the melee, and that will add the spacer. And then now on the x-axis, we're going to go ahead and add in a 10 unit gap. What this will do is it will push out the actual melee weapon away from the box of the primary slot. So this is no longer aligned. We just added 10 additional units to these two boxes, which total was the primary box. So we just need to reduce 5 from both of these boxes. So I'm going to select the size box of both of these elements. And then instead of 225 width, I'm going to make it 220. And that will make it so that it's perfectly aligned here. Next, let's do our lethals and stuff. So we need to have a vertical box first. And drop it onto the wrap box and then name this equipments. Now, in our reference image, we have our main weapon, then we have the pistol, then we have the melee, and then lethal tacticals, and then there is a field upgrade, and then there's perks and specialty perk, and then also a wild card. In this tutorial series, we're not looking at field upgrade, specialty, or wildcard. Again, it's the exact same concept. If you would like to have that in your game, you can. This is specific to the game. So I'm making a generic loadouts system. So that's why I have the perks, lethal tacticals, and the main weapons system. And I have not added the field upgrade, specialty, and wildcard. But in your game, if you would like, you can feel free to add it and also add it to the loadout system, just like how I'm doing it now. So what I'm going to do is instead of having the lethals and tacticals like this, I'm going to put the lethal on the top and then the tactical on the bottom. So it will be on a vertical plane. That's why I have created this vertical box. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select the sidearm and I'm going to right click and then go ahead and duplicate it and then drag the sidearm on top of the equipments. What this will do is it will put it at the bottom here. I'm going to go ahead and rename this to lethals. And the size of this, I'm going to make the height 225. I'm going to select the image and then I'm going to bring in my tactical, which is my grenade or frag. And then again, this would be 200 by, instead of 150, I'm going to make this 175. So it fits the entire frame. And the inside of the size box, the text is no longer class name or name. It's only going to be saying lethals. So I'm going to drop lethals in there. And then now I'm going to go ahead, right click on this lethals and then go ahead and duplicate it and then press F2 to rename. So make it tacticals. And I'm going to do the exact same thing here, right? So I'm going to go inside and then rename this lethals from lethals to tacticals. And then select the image and then bring in my stun, right? And then make this 200 by 175. I'll put in the tacticals. And again, there's no gap in between tacticals and the lethals. So I need to manually add that gap. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in a spacer, drag it and drop it between the lethals and the tacticals, and then make this on the y-axis, which is the top to bottom, 10 units. And because I made this into 10 unit big, I'm going to go ahead and select the size box of the lethals and the size box of the tacticals and reduce it by 5 units on the height. So that will be 220. Compile and save. And now we're going to go ahead and then duplicate this sidearm again. And then I'm going to put it right below the equipment, not on the equipment. Make sure it's not a child of equipment. Put it below the equipment and then you will notice that the sidearm just gets filled this entire slot. First thing first, I'm going to go ahead and name this into perk 1. And then right click on this and I'm going to wrap it with a vertical box. And this vertical box, I'm going to name it perks. And you can immediately see that how it fixed itself and then it's looking pretty good. This 200 size is way too big. We know the total of the tacticals and the lethals is going to be, and also the spacer will be 450 because the actual lethals and tacticals is 220 each. So that makes it 440. And the spacer is 10 unit. So that makes it 450. So if I select this perk class, I can now take the size box and I can divide that 450 by 3, which makes it into 150. And then I can add it in here. And now I'm going to go ahead, right click and then duplicate this 2 more times. And this would add perk 2. So let me go ahead and rename this to perk 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it 1 more time. And then this would be perk 3. And as you can see, it fits perfectly fine, right? It lines up perfectly with the tactical. I'm going to open up perk 1 and then select the image and then set up this health image. Let's make this 200 by 125. Let's make this 150 so it looks nice. Again, this one's going to be my perk number 2. I'm going to make this 150 by 125. And for perk 3, I'm going to select my stamina image and make this 150 by 125. Now it's all perfectly aligned and the images are good. It's overlapping a little bit on the name. We could always fix that by selecting these and then reducing the height to like 125 by 110. And then now it doesn't really have any spaces in between the perks. I'm going to go ahead and add in a spacer. So in between perk 1 and 2, I'm going to add in a spacer, and then 2 and 3, another spacer. Select these two spacers. Now we want to make sure that these spacers and these 3 perk classes total the height of the lethals, tacticals, and the spacer in between, which is 450. So the spacers, I'm going to make it 3 on the y-axis, so that gives it that little gap. And then now I'm going to select the size boxes of all of these 3 perks. And then instead of being 150, I'm going to make this a total of 148. And that will align it very nicely. Now, one thing that we have to do is that our overall size box has now is smaller. We're going to make this into 1,000. What 1,000 will do is it will add a border around the entirety. And then also I'm going to select our size box, right click, and then say wrap with a border. And this border, I'm going to go ahead and select this border. And our brush color, I'm going to make it grayish color to it, a gray tone. And that is it for creating the actual UI. And to show you how this looks in game, I'm going to go to the loadout system, go to the UI, and go to my pause menu, and now search for the loadouts, and drag this onto the overlay itself. And make sure you drag this loadout to the very bottom of it, and then you got yourself your size box. It looks a little odd. We're going to fix that by just updating our size here. Now, if you remember our original size box, we made it 500 by 1,000. So we just got to make this size box here. Size X would be 500. And then we just need to make this 1,000. And that is how the actual loadouts will show up in game. You could always select the scale and then make it 0.8 on both angles of it, 0.8. And then it will be a lot more smaller. And I'm just going to move this around here and then set the anchors to the center. And then also drag this corner up here. And then also this bottom corner down here. Compile, save, and now if I were to play the game, and if I press T, my loadout menu will show up with all of the classes and such. And again, in your game, you can make all the changes you would like, customize it to your liking, but the concept is exactly the same. The pictures may not look the best, the background may not look the best, but the concept is what I'm trying to teach here. I hope this helped you a little bit in how to create the loadout. In our next video, we're going to take a look at how to do our widget interface and then have it update this loadout screen based on what is selected. And also followed by that, we will take a look at how to customize and create your own custom loadouts in the game. Folks, thank you very much for coming this far in this video tutorial series. And if this video had helped you in any way, please hit that like button so I can continue making more and more videos like this. And also hit that subscribe button if you would like to see more contents like this in my channel. And using the comments, let me know what kind of content you would like to see, and I'll be more than happy to make one for you. I'll catch you on the next video. Until then, have yourself a great day.